grabbing drinks sometime, like probably four months ago. And we wouldn't be here if not for all the people on this board and tons of others as well. So wanted to offer a huge shout out to our Redwood sponsors, Amazon and Microsoft, who are contributing a huge amount to this prize purse. Our Oak sponsors, 9-0 and CoMotion, for offering up the space, as well as Seattle Public Utilities and the Washington State Department of Commerce grant. We're still waiting on that to come in, but hopefully if it does, then we can up the prize pool. And then a maple sponsorship for Wilson Sonsini, who is very kind enough, both financially as well as offering a prize in kind. Franklin Energy, AZX, Clean Tech Alliance, E8, the Foster School of Business, Fluent, Snowcap, Velveteen, and Forge. This slide in itself shows that the only way to form anything like this is a huge community, which now you are part of today as well. So thank you and welcome to this community. So big round of applause. Second, I also want to offer a big thank you to our data partners. So anytime you look at innovation in any industry, the foundation is a bedrock of data, really good data, at least the last 30 years or so in the information technology space, and get a great infrastructure. And these four companies are great examples of starting that foundation in climate. So we have Bayou Energy, Palmetto, Shovels, and Muir. We have mentors from all of them, some available digitally, but a lot of them actually available physically throughout the space and also over Slack. As you are going through hacking over the next couple days, or even if you don't have an idea, would highly recommend leveraging either of these companies. Bayou and Palmetto are more focused on energy APIs. Shovels is more focused on building permit APIs. You can see in sort of the names. These are all very creative names. And then Muir AI is focused on carbon tracking of the supply chain. So anyone that's focused on those type of problems, refer to them, utilize our mentors, and then we also have more details and information on the Slack. And then the third is that I wanted to offer a big thank you to the fellow instigators who have done so much work to get up to where we are today. We started off by saying that this probably is going to take up no more than 5 hours a week at our max for any of us, and that's how we were all able to sort of coalesce around this idea, and I was able to convince some of them. But then it's become a part-time job over the last couple of months, and then now it's probably a full-time job over the last 3 weeks. And so huge thank you to first Matt Smith. He's not able to be here, but he'll be during the finale on Friday. Katie Soderlund, who you probably met checking in, is all the way over there. Katie, raise your hand, please.
Hey, everyone.
And then we have Nathaniel Nickel, who I don't know. Nathaniel is also over there. Everyone's super shy. Jordan Bain, who's helping with our live stream in the back, and then Karan Patel, who's done a phenomenal job on all the execution of the last couple days, especially. Big round of applause to all of them. And so then my final thank you, and probably my most important thank you, is to you. By being here today, you already made your first step of working in climate. And that's honestly been our goal, right? Is to get as many people into this climate tent as possible. Because that's the only way we're going to be able to solve this problem. So, this year's been pretty tough overall, politically. But, the problem still lives on. And so the fight still lives on. So as long as there are people like you, we still have a chance to save the world. So big round of applause to yourself. So I just wanted to close on our mission and goal before handing it over to Court. So far, at least to my knowledge, and people can correct me, I don't think that there's any one space globally that has become the heart of the climate economy. And this hackathon started off actually as a little bit of that small idea, right? Is what does it take to make Seattle and the PNW the heart of the climate economy? And ultimately, we boiled it down to the three key things, right? And how we designed the hackathon, everything about the judges that we selected, the rubric that we had, how we wanted to incentivize people to come in, the days that we had, were all centered around these three key ideas, right? First is, if you look at around the room, right? This is not probably a conventional hackathon for those that have spent It's not just coding on a very cool problem. It's really a wide array of folks, everyone from extremely early career to mid to late career, UX designers, lawyers, business people, front-end engineers, back-end engineers, the full gambit, students. So we really want to make sure that we can help the entire spectrum of folk make those connections and be successful in their climate careers. So that's number one. Number two is hopefully with that, and over time, right, as we do more of these things, not just this, but anything that anyone else organizes as well, we can start to foster greater interest in climate entrepreneurship here in Seattle. And I'm a firm believer that you have to have a strong, healthy, entrepreneurial, early-stage entrepreneurial ecosystem to actually drive innovation, and driving innovation is actually what builds you a climate economy. And then the last bit, which is my personal dream, is in 20 years from now, right, I want to see Seattle have a seat at the table, more so than Davos or COP or any other international conference when it comes to being able to actually dictate what climate means, right? And so these are our 3 missions and goals. With that, I want to introduce our keynote speaker of the day, who has already brought a great amount of climate entrepreneurship to Seattle. As the founder of DocuSign, over the company's history, you've saved probably about 93 billion sheets of paper, I believe. That was, I think, Court, you mentioned in the past, that has been some of the original marketing materials and how DocuSign was adopted almost probably 30 years back now, 25, 30 years back. And now Court is also the founder of Founder Nexus, driving forth the next generation of entrepreneurs. So with that, I want you to all extend a warm hand in welcoming Court Lorenzini as our keynote speaker.
All right. Thanks, guys. And actually, the other thing I'll say about the DocuSign story, for those of you, is not only do we see all the trees, think about all the FedEx envelopes that didn't get sent and are traveling on planes across the world. That was the other thing. When we launched DocuSign, we were launching it to compete with fax machines and FedEx envelopes. Okay, so the combination of lack of paper and paper having to move around physically around the globe. But before I get into what I want to talk about today, I want to start with, I've been a founder 5 times, one of which was a specific climate initiative. DocuSign, I would say, was climate adjacent. That wasn't necessarily our goal, but it was certainly something we were trying to do to build the muscle memory of how do you do better business and do climate at the same time. And now, as Vikram said, I'm running a group for venture scale founders that want to execute at a higher level, Founder Nexus. Okay, and this is a passion of mine. So you guys, as engineers, entrepreneurs, inventors, hackers, you guys are my heroes on 2 levels. Number one, founders are what makes the world turn. People that come up with cool ideas, take a big swing, and actually go for it. That's the element of change in the world that we need every day. And without it, the world stops. We don't actually advance. So that's number one. Second, climate. Climate is huge, it's hard, it's the next biggest challenge we all have to face. And so, hero twice over, so well done. As you begin a hackathon, what is a hackathon? Hackathon is, you come up with some cool ideas, you spend a few days trying to figure it out, and at the end, there's going to be a winner declared, but a lot of you are going to come up with some cool shit, okay? And that's great, but I want to put your head a few days forward from now. So we're going to enter a time machine. The time machine is, hey, I just came up with this cool thing. I won, I took 2nd place, I took 3rd place. Do I quit my job? What do I do now? Like, is this a thing I could pursue? Because ideas are extremely valuable, but ultimately ideas are only as good as their execution, and execution at the level of bringing it to life, right? I often say that, a great idea can be ruined with poor execution, but a really well-executed idea can be mediocre to begin with, all right? So really how you take it. So I want to, in this time bubble, talk about what happens after the hackathon, okay? How do you decide whether or not this is worth pursuing as a team or as a group or as an individual? So I talk about it in the context of product market fit. So what is product market? Where we go? There we go, product market fit. Everybody hears that term, But let's sort of dive into the minutiae a little bit. Product market fit is about addressing a gap, something that is unaddressed right now. It could be capabilities, it could be price, it could be regulatory. I'm going to get out of the way here so you guys can see. Regulatory, because a lot of the stuff you'll do has to deal with regulatory environments, technical alternatives, anything else. You're trying to find a gap in a space that is yet to be filled. Okay. And let's start with the bad news. The bad news is almost everything fails, right? And we all see the statistics, but this one is quite sobering. 80% of products will fail, even if they're properly executed. Wow, sounds like terrible odds. Why are we all sitting here? Okay, and yet, it's the optimism. The optimism matters. And there are no good or bad ideas. There are just ideas that get out into the market and those that fail. So let's talk about failure and success. Failure is, hey, that thing did not achieve the result we expected. Doesn't mean it was a bad idea. It just didn't achieve the result we expected. Success is a result that meets or exceeds the expected result. So let's take that as a framework as we sort of walk through this. And I also want to highlight one thing, and I talk about this a lot with my Founder Nexus organization. I call it the success equation. The success equation is decisions, actions, things you do as leaders, developers, entrepreneurs, etc. Every one of those is a variable. And you multiply all those variables together, all those decisions and actions, as a long multiplication string equals success. All right, that's a very simplistic way of thinking about it, but if you think about it that way, two things jump out at you. Number one, because it's a multiplication table, if you get any one of those answers, that long string of variables, dead wrong, 0 out of 100% attainment, what happens to the math? It fails. And, okay? Second realistic observation of running businesses or taking things to market. If you get more than a small amount of those variable decisions, below 50% of their relative attainment. Okay, if you think about it, everything you do is 0 to the best possible, as 100. What also happens to the math? It starts trailing to 0, even though you might not see it yet. Okay, so there's a lot of ways to fail, and only a narrow window taking something to market and being successful. And I think about this a lot because this is what Founder Nexus is designed to do, is to help founders talk to each other and raise every one of those decisions' probability of being higher value so that the equation is trending up over time. Okay. Now, failure also has various permutations of it. There's failure to launch, which has to do with sales and marketing and distribution. There's all sorts of things that could get it to fail that way. There's failure of operations, design, pricing, functionality, reliability, fails to meet minimum thresholds, right? That's operational. And then there's just failure of the premise. Like, we thought this was going to be a good idea, and nobody turned out to be interested. Like, it was cool to us, nobody showed up. It was crickets when we brought it to market. So the key is, are you building the right thing? Not just a thing. And again, remember, we're in a time bubble right now. We're in the future. We're not in the present yet. We've got something that was like, wow, that was really cool. And everybody in the whole, 150 people, 100 people thought it was cool, right? So I would offer this. Start with some simple math. And I call it the XYZ hypothesis, which is at least X% of Y will Z. All right, what does that even mean? All right, X means percentage of the target market that you're aiming to capture or address in some form. Y is the variable that says, what am I trying to build? Like, what is it that I'm trying to accomplish? And Z is, to what extent really did my market engage? So what, fictionally, I'm going to create a fiction right now. If I were to say, what happens if we were to design a machine to sit in laundromats to fold your laundry after it was done? Okay, public laundromat, you come in, you throw your shit, the big, everybody's seen them or done it probably in college. What would an example of that be? Okay, an example would say, okay, if I'm going to go to the effort of building an automated laundry folding machine, this is what an XYZ analysis might look like. At least 25% of coin laundry operators or users will pay this much, $3. You have to have a real number. These have to be numbers per load to have their laundry folded within 15 minutes. Okay? So it has to be pretty tight in order for this process to work. But I encourage you, as you, again, in this time machine bubble, you think about what are the economics of building this thing I just designed. What is the world going to see? How are they going to use it? How much will they pay for it? And you put a stake in the ground. That's it. It just has to be a hypothesis. Your goal now is to test it. So testing it means, hey, I built the hack. It's a simple, low-cost thing. You don't need to build a full prototype. You don't need to spend weeks, months building something that's super functional, even. In fact, I'll tell you a real-world story. When I was starting DocuSign, now, mind you, this was in 2003. Early internet, very, very limited access to things. There were no cloud servers. There was none of that, okay? So what did we do? Rather than build the software, my hack was to actually build, I had a graphic artist design screens on paper, physically on paper. And every screen was a visual, and I would walk into prospective clients that I was test driving the idea on. We hadn't written a line of code. And I would sit the stack in front of them as if it were a computer, and I'd say, all right, push a button. Interact with this screen. And then we'd flip to the next set of screens, and we would run people through that until we got a flow that actually worked. Okay? Only when we had consistent results did we write our first line of code. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about. It can be super low tech. It doesn't have to be much of anything to actually be functional to test a hypothesis. What are you trying to answer? Is somebody going to use it? Do they actually value this thing I'm putting in front of them? Would they pay for it? You got to propose a price point. If I did this, now that you've done it, how much would you, and actually you should not ask, this is from personal experience, don't ask them how much they would pay for it. Tell them what you want to charge for it, back to the hypothesis, this was $3, whatever, and then get a response. Okay? How often would they use it? Here are the things you're not answering with this prototype. Can I even build it? Am I building a science fiction air crane, or is this something that actually is going to work? Is it going to work as intended? You're not trying to answer that at this phase. Or how big, small, cheap, fast can I do any of this? That comes later. You're trying to get an initial response that validates whether or not this thing is worth taking your incredibly valuable time and energy to take it to the next step, right? Because again, back to most products fail, even if they're properly executed. Remember that first statement? It's a big risk. Okay. So, visualizing. What does this actually look like? XYZ hypothesis. So you've got a scale where you say, I've got my numbers, I've got my hypothesis, I'm going to put it out in the world, and I'm going to start gathering data. All right, so you might say the idea cloud is the green, the target is the blue for the moment. You say, oh great, I got iteration number 1. My XYZ was something, I got a certain set of responses, I tested it a couple times. Okay, doesn't look like it's passing yet. I don't have a set of variables that is likely to, I only get 10% pass rate, okay? Maybe I'll do a second set of tests on a new hypothesis and I move a little bit. I don't know where in this idea cloud I am at the moment. By the way, there's no navigational aids here other than this testing model, okay? Maybe I go to 3, then I go to iteration 4. Okay, I'm clearly getting better results with iteration 4, but I'm not there yet. All right, now I get to iteration 5. All right, I test. I'm like, okay, I'm like 70 to 90%. My XYZ hypothesis is coming up true, right? It is meeting or exceeding the numerical statement I made, okay? Now you've got something, all right? This is critical because a lot of people say, I got this great idea, then they do the first couple tests, like, oh, they just don't understand what I'm doing. They don't get it. You blame the customer. Bad answer. That usually ends up you failing. The customer's not going to fail, you're going to fail. Okay? So basically the idea is let data guide you to the answer, to is this worth pursuing. All right. final thoughts. Very few, almost every idea that's ever been had has already been had and tried. So experience tells me certainly, that when you have something and you've actually done all this X, Y, Z and you've got something that you think is valuable, the next thing I would tell you to do is go talk to people that have tried something similar. LinkedIn is an amazing vehicle and internet way back, because you can actually look up companies that have tried something like what you're about to try. And then you use LinkedIn to find out where their executives live and work right now, because they clearly failed on that attempt. Write them, call them, ask them for their time, and tell them that you're about to start down a path that they went down. In my experience, 80 to 90% of those people will give you their time. People are very willing to tell you what happened on their journey. And when you get them on that call, your job is to find out every mode of failure, why they failed. And, oh, by the way, please introduce me to some other people in the industry that maybe were your competitors at the time. Or other people you worked with that could give me unique insights into the marketing aspect or the sales aspect or the technical aspect, depending on who you're talking to. And could you introduce me? Because your job at that moment is to excavate all of the modes of failure that could trip up the idea you're about to pursue. And then your job is to solve for them. To look objectively at every mode, every fatal flaw that you uncover in that journey, and digest it, look at your current trajectory and decide, do I actually have a solution for this? My wife jokes that DocuSign was the idea that wouldn't die. And I say that, again, in perfect retrospect, because when my co-founders and I were ideating the first iteration of DocuSign, I was going through and executing on a process, pretty much this exact process. And I'd get all excited. I'm like, okay, I got it. I've got it. And then a week would go by, and I'd be just walking around like somebody had taken my puppy. And she's like, what happened? I'm like, I found the fatal flaw. I can't solve it. I don't know how to solve this problem. And then another week would go by, and I'd be bouncing around again, excited about what I did. So what happened? I figured it out. I figured out how to get around that fatal flaw. This went on for 9 months. Not 9 weeks, not 9 days, 9 months of me executing, finding fatal flaws, getting depressed, fixing them, addressing them, until we finally had a business idea that I felt was worth pursuing. And quitting a job, raising capital around it and executing. 9 months. So this doesn't always happen fast, and that's okay. Tools today it iterates faster now than it was when I was doing this back in 2003. But the process is the same. Okay, so time bubble collapsed. We're back to present. You guys are going to have a great time over the next few days, hacking the shit out of this thing. I hope every idea is a gem. It probably won't be, but that's okay. But bring the energy. This is what we do. This is how we do it. And then get to the end, and then do something like this before you, jump ship or decide to quit or, go to try and raise capital. Because you do this, your odds of success go way up. Doesn't go to 100. They go back to the 80% still fail with properly execution. Odds are still bad. That's okay. Go for it. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great time with the hack.
Hello, everyone. Who's had too much coffee today already? Yeah. We're ready to hack. All right. All right, my name is Sarah Osell. I am the Co-Motion Labs Manager for the Climate Tech Incubator and also helping to manage the Seattle Climate Innovation Hub. We are a collective of partners intended to drive industry growth for climate solutions, resiliency, and adaptability in the Seattle, Pacific Northwest, and beyond. We are made up of the University of Washington, Co-Motion Labs Climate Tech Incubator, the 9-0 Climate Community. Thank you so much for primarily organizing all of this with the Hackathon folks, Virtue Lab, which is the impact investing group, and the Seattle Office of Economic Development, which we're so grateful for funding support and also pilots for the community, being a strong connection there. So I just wanted to give a briefing on getting around the hub today, keep everyone safe, hydrated, please drink water. Switch from coffee to water. There are some red zones on this map. You'll see some signage throughout the space. The red zones are 9-0 members only and management only. We do have an active, busy co-working community here, so please don't interrupt their daily business. You've all seen the food in the kitchen. This will be transformed into a hacking zone. There's also 2 doors over on the other side that are hacking zones. So if the door has a green circle on it, the logo of the hackathon, feel free to go work in there. We also have toilets you all came in through the elevators. Across from the elevators are 2 toilets. And that is also the location, that elevator bay there. If there is an emergency, please remain calm. I just got my fire safety training, but head to the elevators. Those are pillars of safety in the building. They'll keep you safe on the way down. All right, so I just went over that signage. I think probably the most important one, please do keep your bikes in the garage. There's information on the sign by the elevators about how to lock your bikes up. We have secret storage down there. We just don't have room in the hallways right now with all you around here. And all right, so with that, if you do feel like you want to keep working here, please do feel free to scan the QR code. There's also QR codes throughout the space. Join 9-0, we're awesome. We'd love to have you. And I think with that, I'll pass it over.
Yeah, sure. I'll come without the microphone.
Okay.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Cool. Hi, I'm Lowell. A few years ago, I was working software at Meta and was kind of getting fed up working on stuff I didn't care about. I started working on a solar deployment startup, and at the same time started organizing like climate community meetups because I didn't know people who worked on stuff that they cared about. And that was like very reinvigorating and is a big part of why I like this community. Flash forward a couple years past that, meeting up, once a month was great, but not really scratching the itch. And I wanted to spend more of my days working alongside people who work on climate. At the time, Vikram and I were working on a startup, and we were like doing the math on how much impact we could have. And even if we were wildly successful, it's still like a small fraction of what needs to happen. And so I wanted to spend more time working alongside people who work on climate. We did a couple climate co-work like pop-ups. Flash forward to about 6 months ago, we opened this space along with our partners that Sarah just described. We've got hundreds of folks in Seattle and SF who all work on climate. So this is the 9-0 community. We're opening in New York City in the summer, and then a few more locations nationally, and then European locations. We got folks working on thin film solar cell manufacturing, EV charging robots, water positive carbon dioxide removal. We've got agriculture folks, founders, investors, entrepreneurs, scientists. And we try to do whatever we can to support the people working in the space. So if you need capital or talent, or you're looking for a job, or you just want to learn more and spend more time with these people, we've got space to gather, we've got space to work. We've just launched a lab access vehicle for hardware founders that need capital and access to lab space to commercialize their products. We've got podcast recordings. A lot of our events are member organized. So the team that Vikram just showed you is all the folks that you would be hanging out with, working on cool stuff if you joined. If you'd like to learn more and don't yet understand how 9-0 can serve you, come talk to me or anyone with one of these badges is a member, and they can talk to you about how cool 9-0 is. Woo! Woo!
is Karan. I'm kind of in charge of the day-to-day logistics for the event. I was also in charge of the party hats. I thought event is more fun, and this way you can easily identify who the organizers are and who the mentors are. So let's see. So this is the timeline for the event. We're obviously at the kickoff right now. Right after the kickoff, we will form teams. So for anybody who does not currently have a team, we have some time set aside to help facilitate those connections. And then we also know that there are teams that are still looking for team members. So stick around to make those connections right after this. At 1 p.m., we will be asking folks to submit their current team at that time, along with wherever you are at with your idea. And I'll talk about this a little more in a slide, but the reason behind that is not all teams are starting completely from scratch. Given that we have some hardware ideas, we have some folks that have been doing research prior to this, we wanted to kind of level the playing field between people who've had some time to work on those things and then people who are actually starting from scratch. And so the idea is that all teams will kind of disclose where they're starting from, and that will be part of the judging criteria. And so so that will happen at 1 o'clock. Submit your team at the moment along with where you're at. Tomorrow we will finalize teams. The reason for that is just in case anything changes on your teams, you can sort of finalize that to make sure that we know exactly who's on what team. And that is very important because that then helps us make sure everyone gets prizes accordingly. So very important. And we'll send out reminders for these things as we go. So 1 o'clock on Friday will be the project submission. So that's when you'll turn in your pitch, as well as a 1-minute video or screen recording of your demo, whatever that may be. And then from there, we'll go into our presentations and judging. So for presentations, the format will vary slightly depending on how many teams we have at the final submission. But either way, we're going to have a science fair type presentation so that all of you get to showcase your work and you get to engage with members of the community who we'll have here. So you'll all have an opportunity to show that off and have some time to do that. And then depending on how many teams we have, we might have an initial round of judging at that point just to narrow down the teams so that the amount of time that we have is more manageable for final presentations. But again, if we have enough teams that everybody can just go to the final round, then we'll still have the science fair. There won't be any judging after that, and all teams will be able to present in the final round. So we'll kind of make that decision once we get the team submissions in on Thursday, and we'll let you all know how that's going to go. So resources. So all of you should be in the Slack already. If you aren't, we have some QR codes up front that you can scan or just come talk to any of the organizers and we'll get you in there. So there are channels set up there already for you to coordinate with each other, for you to get help from our data partners and from mentors. The judging rubric, there's a link, so we'll share this slide deck afterwards so you have all of this, but there's a link to the judging rubric in there so you'll see what categories you're going to be judged on and what the weightage for those categories are. The data partners, again, so that information will already be there in Slack for you to access. And then lastly, we have a great team of mentors who have all volunteered their time to help you out. We have a very wide range of backgrounds here. We have technical folks, business folks, all of them have different industry expertise in different areas and are all ready to help in whatever way you need. So there is a spreadsheet that is linked there with time slots based on whenever they're available throughout the day. Some of them are here in person and you're welcome to meet with them in person. Some of them are virtual and you can connect with them through Slack and set up a call with them. But the idea is that they have the availabilities on that spreadsheet and you can just put your name down for 15 or 30-minute slots, depending on who you need help from. And lastly, just sort of expectations and some ground rules for being here. We talked about already, be good stewards of this space. We're sharing it with folks who work here every day. And so just treat this as you would any professional environment that you're in. Clean up after yourselves, respect the space. Food, we'll have snacks and stuff out for all of us on in the hackathon. But there are also things for people in the community, so we'll just leave that be and we'll stick to our stuff. Yeah, you only need to attend the kickoff and judging. Those are the only two in-person events, but for the rest of the time, feel free to work from wherever you feel most comfortable and however you feel most comfortable. It could be in person, virtual, a mix of both, whatever works for your team. The Hackathon Code of Conduct that was shared earlier, so just make sure to scan and abide by it. Like I mentioned earlier, one of the key sort of highlights is that there are teams that are working on existing projects. And so we are going to judge those teams based on where they start today, not based on the work that they have done so far. And so we are asking teams to disclose that. And then again, the three sort of submissions here, today by 1 p.m., your team and starting point. Tomorrow, any changes to your teams if that has happened. And then on Friday, the final project submissions. And so all of these are linked here for when you need them, and we'll share them in Slack as well. Cool. Go back.
Before I do this again. Sorry, I just wanted to give the surprise. But y'all probably already know. So, okay, so the big thing, hopefully they're excited about, at least it can offset some of those that are, skipping work and being here full time. So, our prizes, right? So we have 5 prizes for them cash, not. So we have, and I should also qualify. I think I mentioned this in the sponsorship slide. So we're waiting for some final funds to come in. These are minimums. The number may go up. Grand prize, $4,000 cash split equally amongst the winning team. Runner-up, we have, which basically means if you're judged along all the dimensions in terms of total, you'll have a $1,500 cash split equally amongst the winning team. We also then have a best public interest or nonprofit. So if any of y'all are worried a little bit about the business model, but you have still a phenomenal idea, and I know I've seen some in Slack already that, depending on whether or not you want to go down the business path, there's also still a prize for you. And then last but not least, sponsored by Virtue Lab, one of the co-facilitators of the space, is the most gigatons removed, or basically the most climate impact. And what that could mean is whether it's adaptation, mitigation, or resilience, if anyone really knows those terms, it basically means either reduce CO2, make us not die if the world goes become really bad, and then also, from a resilience standpoint, just we either adapt to the future world or we mitigate the effects that happen. So your solution could be along any of those dimensions. Is climate, all of it solves our problem, and that's a $2,000 cash split, intentionally higher than some of the other ones that you've seen. And then last but not least, we have a most business ready prize. And what we thought was, if there's a team that would love to continue this idea after this hackathon, we wanted to offer some resources to people. So, and that includes a incorporation package provided by Wilson Sonsini, a go-to-market strategy consulting hours by a consulting shop called Fluent, lunch with one of the VCs here called Velveteen Ventures, marketing consulting hours with an independent marketing consultant out here, a featured podcast episode on 9Zero's new podcast, and then 2 months of co-working for the winning team. So hopefully that helps you sort of get off to a strong start. And then the last thing, which apparently was not, these prices are not mutually exclusive. So other than the grand prize and runner-up, which are mutually exclusive by the nature of them, the rest of them are not. So you may win more than one. It's up to the discretion of the judges, which I think hopefully y'all have already seen on Slack and LinkedIn. Okay, with that, any questions? So I want to make sure that we can reserve probably around 10 minutes or so for any questions then before we go ahead and break. So with that, I invite some of the other organizers to come up here. Don't feel shy. Any questions that you have?
I have a question.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if our team is formed, we have a full set of persons, we start immediately.
Yeah.
We don't have to wait till 11 o'clock for.
Yeah, absolutely.
The question was, if your team is already formed, do you have to wait till 11? The answer is no. You can start right after this.
Okay. Yep.
Is number of people on the team one of the criteria that are kind of looked at by the judges, working together
No, not at all. So we can probably link back to the judging rubric and just quickly share that. Maybe I'll do that in just about a few minutes after some of the other questions. But you can have up to a max of 7 team members. We recommended, I think, between like 2 to 7. But I mean, if you wanted to have your own team, you're more than welcome to. Yeah.
Do you expect the team to work on site, or they can fluid, like remotely, whatever works for them?
Yeah, totally fluid. So our primary expectation, and I know someone had asked this on the Slack before as well, is also to have fully remote members. And the primary answer is ideally we want everyone here, but let's say if you had like one team member that has some unique skill set or something that you really needed and there's not available on site and they really want to participate, that's okay. But our only expectation of on-site presence are being here, and then also at the basically the second half of Friday.
Just for the presentations and judging.
But yeah, the science fair. Yeah.
What's the difference between the science fair presentation and the final presentation?
Yeah, great question. So we just so the final presentation is actually like a pitch, right? So you're standing in front of an audience and you're actually delivering a short pitch, and then you'll be for the lack of a better term, grilled by a couple of judges, right? But the science fair portion is that we'll basically open up this space and probably over that space as well. For the team members that want to, or if you want to alternate while other people are looking at other presentations, you'll basically have your laptop there. People will walk around and then be able to sort of see, and you would just be able to engage and sort of sell them on it, right? And some of them may be the final judges as well. And then depending on what Karan said, based on our judging criteria, we may also be judging during that early time. But we will let people know well in advance on Thursday based on final teams.
Okay. 2 questions. One is, do you have a target number of groups that goes to the final round if the people of science?
Yeah, it's a great question. We had sort of designed it roughly around 8 to 10 in terms of like time constraints. But we can also go up. This is why we're trying to be as flexible as possible, right? Really, what we care about is as many people as possible into the tent. So 8 to 10 is the ideal. We potentially could go up to like 15, and then depending on that, like we'll have to think about round 1 or round 2.
Second question is, is there an online platform you recommend to use for dealing with the data?
Ooh, that's a great question. Probably for one of our mentors. I am not that person. Unless Karan is that person.
I'm definitely not.
So, in terms of sponsorship, like Microsoft.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. No preference. Yeah.
Question.
I have a question about the criteria of most climate impact. Is that how would you measure the truthfulness of that climate?
Yeah. How do you measure the truthfulness? So I would say every single one of our judges has a pretty good BS detector, right? They have probably about like 20 to 30 years of experience, like in the field respectively. Whether it's in climate investing, whether it's in like built environment, whether it's in grid, right? Like different verticals. So that would be my simple answer, is that they will probably have to pass that muster. But in the judging criteria, you'll see it as well in the PDF. If anyone has not seen it or does not know where to find it, just come after me, or I'll present it in a second as well. But the definition is sort of threefold, or actually twofold really. One is what is like the TAM, right? Like, which is like how much can you actually go after? And then the second is what is the likelihood that your solution, right, you can execute it against that problem, right? So let's say if you're trying to solve fertilizer emissions, right, that's like 14% of the total, right? But then maybe you can only solve a certain small portion of that, right? You can't displace ammonia, maybe you can displace nitrogen, some very small, narrow form, right? It's a multiplication equation, right? So I see it fairly mathematically. Yeah.
Hi, I just want to clarify for the emissions. Are we, for climate impact, are you directly looking at a direct impact on GHG emissions, or it can be an indirect impact, but it would decrease GHG emissions by a lot?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and honestly, I think you just have to make a case, right? And so that's why it's not just about emissions, and that's why the 3 components I said. So one is mitigation, right, which is more about GHG emissions reduction. Then you have adaptation, right, which is more about like in a future world, not like like seawalls, but like, how do you think about like the infrastructure that we need to build? And then resilience, right? So in the case of like really bad disaster response situations, right? Like what do we need to do, right? So it could mean all those things, but all of that is really about solving climate, right? Because the problem is going to happen along all those dimensions. Does that answer your question?
Priority.
No.
Okay.
No. It's up to you making the case.
Can you talk a little bit more about the judging scheme? Certain judges specialize. We look at average scores. One judge look at a certain project.
Yeah.
One specific.
Great question. All 5 judges, their scores are equal, and they will score it, and then they will deliberate, and ultimately we have a clear criteria along those dimensions, but there will be judges' discretion, right? As the 5 of them sort of just decide together, right? So it's not one person for one category; it's a collective decision. Except, yeah.
So this is a question that was related to something that was asked earlier about focusing on GHG emissions. If there are other aspects of climate change or environmental action that somebody comes up with, so an example would be, here's a land use, here's a parcel of land, and in that land we should restore it to wetlands, compared to putting up a direct carbon capture facility. So from a purely GHG perspective, the direct carbon capture probably is going to capture more CO2. But if you look at other frameworks, the environmental justice framework, the native rights to land and access and other species existing, there's a case to be made that that other solution is better. I'm just trying to understand, like, is the focus mostly on the GHG, and or can we expect that the judges will have a more holistic view of looking at things?
Yeah, I feel like you hit the nail on the head of why this is a big problem for us, like globally, right? It's like we don't know exactly how we're prioritizing some of these solutions. I think I would say, the guidance that we will give the judges is look at it holistically, more so than just like very like rote. Is anyone familiar with the game Daybreak? You want to play Daybreak? Yeah, some folks over here. Okay. It's a fun game. It's basically the founders of Pandemic have created it, and so there's some fun cards in there, and there's some cards on like resilience. There's multiple ways to lose the game, but you can lose the game if you lose biodiversity. You can lose the game if you cause some tipping point for the Greenland ice sheet basically like melting down, right? So there's many ways to lose the game, and as long as you can make the case, yeah. Okay. Okay, with that, maybe let's just spend like 2 more minutes on the judging criteria, and if you have any questions, I feel like I'm going to get a ton of questions on this, but I think it's worthwhile to discuss it up front. We had it in here. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, don't mind. Okay, so this is our judging criteria for those that haven't seen it. It's in the Slack. I think it's in the it's in one of the channels, several channels, but I'm sure if you just search it, it'll show up. So we have 5 dimensions. We have the incremental progress made during the hackathon. So I think there were a lot of questions about, hey, I've been thinking about this idea. It's sort of in the back of my head. I don't really know. Is this okay to include it? This hackathon is different than perhaps some others because we don't have this is the specific problem that you have to solve. We just want you to be able to showcase what you're passionate about and make a case for it so that you can rally the community behind it, right? But then that also makes it a little bit more challenging in how we judge. So to create a fair playing field, we have this as probably one of the most significant weighted criteria. So for those that have done significant work before in advance, and we ask that you abide by the code of conduct and the honor code, disclose it, and then just talk about what you have made progress-wise over the course of the hackathon, right? And the judges will be able to deliberate and figure that out. The second is the customer problem, right? And I'll read some of the questions. I'll just be because I think they do a pretty good job of explaining what this is. 1, have you clearly articulated what the customer problem is? And I place a lot of emphasis on like clear articulation. And then second is, do you just go beyond the assumptions and actually validate the problem? And I think Court talked a lot about that with the graph paper and like, going out into customers and trying to find the ideal. Done something more than just sort of general desk research or high level logical analysis, right? Have you actually been able to go? Third, have you presented that this need is something that needs to be solved and it's urgent to be solved now, right? Is it the theoretical problem that you see that maybe some people can sort of care about, or is it something that there are customers that you can point to today and say that they have this problem right now and they need to solve? The next one is proposed solution, and this is really about creating this MVP. So can you demonstrate over the course of these, I guess effectively almost 48 hours, but over the 3 calendar days, a functional prototype or visualization or walkthrough for that solution? Do you clearly address the actual customer problem? Is it, just because it's a cool solution for solution's sake, that won't get you points, but do you actually solve the problem that you highlight? And then also the same on like, is this clear why this and why not, right? Like in terms of specificity. And then the last component of really the problem solution is really about the business strategy, operating model, and execution plan. I'll lump that all sort of in, right? Which is a lot of also what Court's presentation was on. You have a clear market opportunity that you talked about. Also the key requirements for you to go to win, right? Go to market strategy, resources, partnership. And then also for any public or nonprofit type of solution, does it basically explain how you would execute on it, right? So you may not have the same go-to-market strategy, but how do you think about attracting the funding or partnerships or community support to be able to make this happen? And then the last bit, which I know is sort of ambiguous, but it's up to y'all to make the case, right? Which is, does the solution demonstrate significant potential to address climate change? And that could be across mitigation, cross adaptation, or resilience. Clear as mud? Okay, cool. Yeah, like I said, a lot of thought went into all of these things. Back to our 3 primary missions and goals, right, of what we want to do: attract more people into the community, increase climate entrepreneurship, and then make ourselves the beacon of innovation, right? So, with anyone that has a team already, I invite you to start hacking. So we have, I think Sarah shared a little bit about the space, but so right past the front desk, there's a bar section over there. There's a bunch of tables. We gotta probably turn on the lights or something like that, but there's, we're good. And then there's some plugs, and you can just start to hack away. And there are 4 whiteboards, so you may need to share. You can do back-to-back on whiteboards or something like that. And then for those that don't have a team yet, stick around here, or if you're looking to add more team members, stick around here. And what we'll try to do is maybe for anyone that has an idea that they want to coalesce around, we'll ask them to pitch. And then we'll coalesce around those ideas. With that, thank you so much for attending, and happy hacking.
All right.